one night killed 5 people in Lexington. And I can remember getting a call from the homicide unit. We found a body out here in the Godfather's Pizza parking lot. So out I went, and somebody had been shot and stabbed and run over and dragged under the car for a while. And so I saw what I needed to see there, and then I went home, got ready to get back in bed, and the phone rang again. And it was the lieutenant for the homicide unit. Says, "Ray, we found another body." And this one was at behind Sherwin-Williams over there on near Codell Drive, whatever that road is. And so I went out there, and while we were there, and somebody had been run over, shot, and stabbed. And when we were there, while we were there, the police got a call and said, "Hey, we got a car on fire, and there are 3 bodies here." And so I went over there, and it was in the field that's out off of Squires Road, where Richmond Road and Squires Road come together. There was a field back there, so we went out there. Sure enough, the people were shot, stabbed, and run over, and burned in this case, because they lit the car on fire. And so this was a huge event going on in Lexington.
Is that the most people ever killed in Lexington at that point in one night, or is it still stand?
As far as I know, yeah. So what happens is there was a disorder over at the St. Joe East emergency room. Turns out that Faye Foster and Tina Hickey Powell were over there looking all bloody, and they wanted to call a cab. And subsequently, there was a path that the police followed next day on the investigation, and it was called the condom path, because Tina and Faye had stolen condoms from some drugstore, and they had dropped them along the way over to the St. Joe East Hospital.
Are they drunk?
Well, that's what they claim to be.
I got you. They claim to be drunk. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. So what happens is that they're arrested, taken downtown, and on the and that was in the old jail on Corral Street. And Faye Foster claimed to be so drunk she didn't know what she was doing. Thank goodness they had a video of her checking in, and she did not appear to be out of control drunk, and that helped. But we tried that case, and it took 6 weeks to try it. And Keller, what are you talking about, Ray? Well, Keller was the judge in that case. And Faye Foster was sentenced to death, and Tina Powell, who was found guilty of all of them, and was life without parole for 25 years. Very difficult case, and Keller was a good trial judge. Keller also went to the Supreme Court, and this is a case that you basically broke when you were a homicide detective, and that was the Shane Ragland case. If you remember that, we prosecuted that scoundrel and was found guilty, and then we get into this never-ending appeal process, and one of the judges on the Supreme Court was a guy named Bill Cooper, a guy that I have almost no respect for, and he wrote an opinion that reversed it. Then we petitioned for it to be reconsidered, and Keller prevailed because Keller was on the bench there, and then the sentence was reinstated. And then something else happened, and Cooper wrote another opinion, and anyway, I was forever grateful. I'm convinced that Keller was right on this thing.
Of course he was.
And that Cooper was wrong. And it was, any rate.
Yeah.
So that was that. So we're sorry that he died. He was although I disagreed with him on some things, he was a good judge and an excellent trial judge. And, he'll be missed. So, what was your thought when Shane Ragland case was reversed?
I guess I was shocked. I really was shocked because I've never dealt with anyone that was more guilty. You know, I mean, if you can get any more guilty than all the evidence that we had, and it was just so obvious to me that something was up. But it's one of those deals where I'd never believed that sometimes the system could get crooked like that because I hadn't experienced it. But it did, and it was just I didn't believe it. Never believed it would happen. But since then, I've learned that there's all kinds of twists and turns to these things, and you never say never. That's the issue. You talk about LaFonda Faye Foster being sentenced to death. Is she still on death row?
Nope.
Okay.
It was that one was reversed.
Yeah. So
and it came time to retry the case. Now, you got to remember, defendants always choose the witnesses. We don't choose the witnesses. Yeah. The defendants decide who they're going to commit these crimes in front of, and the people that Faye Foster and Tina Hickey Powell knew did not live the healthiest lifestyle in American history, and so it came time to retry the case, and half a dozen of important witnesses were gone.
Yeah.
And
well, and that's how it works with these death penalty cases. Even the so-called life cases, is the appeals process goes on for 10 or 15 years, and normally odds are that a key witness in a case, somebody that was important, will pass away or not. You can't find them, and then ultimately they hope to get it overturned, and these people walk. So you go in a lot of cases from being such a hardcore individual, and you've done something so heinous that the state has decided, based on a jury's recommendation, to put you to death. We're just kidding, you're free now. How do you make that change? You're so dangerous that you have to be put to death, but we were just kidding. And that happens a lot more than people realize. And these cases that get overturned by the Innocence Project and things like that, more often than not, like 99.9% of the time, that's exactly what happens.
99.9% of the Innocence Project cases turn out that the person did the killing. And guess what? It wasn't this guy's DNA inside this girl who was raped, right? So they said, aha, we finally got Larson now.
Yeah.
And so it turns out, the judge said, the girl said, well, yes, I did have sex with several people that day. This guy raped me. I don't know why. And then we had the witnesses, and the judge says, look, nice try, but this guy's guilty. And so you didn't see that one on the front page of the newspaper. You see, the Innocence Project just doesn't talk about the cases that turn out to be correct. Just the ones that they think are not as guilty as prosecutors.
In a lot of cases, it turns out that there's a question. You got two thugs there, both are involved in raping and killing someone, and it's one pointing the finger at the other as to which one fired the second shot that actually killed the victim, and they muddy the water with that. Well, if you can't prove who fired the second shot, then we don't really know who actually killed the person, so that guy was innocent, even though they were both involved in the crime and all the heinous stuff. That, in most cases, is what you have. And then as time passes, witnesses pass, witnesses die. Sometimes the police officers that testified in the case will pass away, and they'll look for those and go, okay, now we've got one we might be able to resubmit and overturn. So that's the game.
Well, I'm going to give you some statistics. You love these statistics. in the most recent ones I have are 2012. And I keep talking about these property crimes. In 2012, there were over 20,000 property crimes in Lexington. That means burglaries, breaking into cars, stealing property, all of that sort of thing. That means that 1 out of every 15 people that live in Lexington, Kentucky in 2012 were the victim of a property crime. That means that there were 56 property crimes a day, and that's 2.5 an hour. 2.5 property crimes an hour. Now, what I can't seem to get anybody to care about, other than people that have things broken into, are the fact that these property criminals are not suffering consequences for breaking the law. And I'm going to keep on keeping on until I tip over, I guess. But it's critical that the people that are listening know that property criminals in Lexington, Kentucky are being probated at the rate of 65% in Fayette Circuit Court. And they're probated. And what does probation mean? You go out, back on the streets, and if you do this and this and this, you're going to be in trouble. I'm going to throw you in jail, says the judge. Well, they do this and this and this. They come back to court, and guess what? The judge probates 56% of them. And it's the problem is nobody knows who the judges are, and nobody knows who their representatives are. So my goal is to get people to figure out who in the hell their representatives are and who the judges are, and get with it.
Well, one victim at a time, victims get ignored. You know, victims are most often it's separate incidents scattered all over town, so it's very easy to ignore one voice, and that is what these people, in my opinion, sort of hide behind. They're like, it's got one person mad at me, but that's the reality of it. Because listen, victims aren't troublemakers. Victims are just trying to live their lives. They're trying to work their jobs, trying to take care of their family. They don't have time to protest. They don't have time to take it to the next. They just don't. You know, they have to move on. They're professional protesters that stand up for these thugs, and that's all they do. But you know, victims they have to move on with their lives, and unfortunately, that's I know that's what your office does. You do your best to stand up for the victims. There's only a few of you too, right?
Yeah.
And it'd help maybe if you're a little taller.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, you know, I got to be louder. I can't be taller. I'm just louder.
We'll see you next week on InTouch.